welcome again to another episode of Feeding Our Faith. And with me today, Peter has joined me in order to be able to be not only sort of to talk with us, but also to help me in making German potato salad today. Now, German potato salad, of course, is a great thing to make around this time because oftentimes we celebrate Oktoberfest, and well, I thought it was only proper roast. To have beer as we were going to go ahead and make the German potato salad. Now, what we've done for the German potato salad is the first thing we did was we chopped up about 3 white onions, and then we fried some bacon. Now, the bacon's already been cooked because we needed the grease for it. Oh yes, we're cooking in bacon grease. Now, one of the things we're going to do is we have the bacon grease that's heating up there. I actually just finished cooking the potatoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the pot off, and we're going to drain those. Now, Peter, you've had German potato salad before, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Love it.
Good deal. Well, I've always been a big fan of German potato salad myself. Got it on the internet. All right, can't see. We took about 4 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes and cut them into chunks and then boiled them until they were just starting to get a little soft. Oops, a few extra there. And we're going to let those drain. Now, while those are draining, we got the bacon grease heating up, and we're going to start cooking these onions in the bacon grease. Now, we got a spoon over here for you, I believe. Peter won't do a spatula this time. And how are you skilled for the cooking onions?
Let me show you.
All right, ready? Yeah. Basically, we're going to cook these onions until they become a little bit soft, a little more translucent. Now, German potato salad, unlike some of the potato salads you might have at picnics or things like that, is actually a potato salad which is served warm. And not a lot of people realize that, but oftentimes German potato salad is served warm, which is actually very good. It's a vinegar-based potato salad, so it won't actually go bad because the heat or anything like that. You don't have mayonnaise or mustard in, or you don't have mayonnaise in it. We will be putting a little mustard in it later. Now, Peter, do you remember making your first communion?
I do.
Okay.
And it's because I grew up in a Protestant congregation.
Oh, really?
And so they had believer's baptism. Everybody, when we turned 13, we were in a Sunday school class together.
Okay.
And we all, at the same time, at the same service, were dunked. We had a proper bathtub, so you had to have a swimsuit on and the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And you did your baptism and your first communion in the same service.
Okay.
So I distinctly remember the whole process. And of course, we had a great big party and everything was a blast. That's appropriate.
Okay. But as from when you're younger to now, and because our topic for today is actually talking about the Eucharist, the idea of the Eucharist and what it does for us. Because I think a lot of us we'll receive communion and we go up and receive the Eucharist, but then it's actually understanding why it is that we receive it, how does it benefit us spiritually? Or is it just something we only do or are only called to do out of obligation? As you kind of got a few years on you since then, how have you seen the Eucharist as being a part of your life in that regards?
Well, that Protestant congregation, as with most Protestant congregations, has a focus on individual responsibility, individual decisions, and a confession of faith.
Okay.
But the focus on the individual shifted when I became a Catholic after getting married.
Okay.
And now there is a distinct, what I feel every time I take the Eucharist and participate, I feel this specific communal aspect, communion, community, communing with one another, communing with God, becoming a part of the body of Christ and sharing that. So I feel less of an individualistic kind of connection to I am partaking, but rather we as a community have made this offering, we're sharing the sacrifice together, and it's uniting us in the midst of all of our diversity. All the differences between us, we are now being formed together as the body of Christ in this place, this locality, this parish. So I've always had this strong sort of shift from this individual focus to a communal focus.
Okay.
And that's been a very powerful and empowering understanding.
I understand. It's sometimes I think we get very focused on the idea of me receiving the Eucharist, I receive the Eucharist, and there's definitely a communal aspect to it in which it unites us closer as a community. It helps us as a community to not only connect with each other, but then connecting together to Christ together.
Right.
And which is a beautiful thing if you look at it. I mean, prayers during the Mass, everything that focuses around the Eucharist is very much responsive and between the priest and the community that involves us both.
Right. Along with that, though, being a part of a community is somewhat liberating. I mean, if you focus on the individual, then you focus on levels of responsibility that, as sinful creatures, we're not really capable of living up to. But as a community, receiving that forgiveness, becoming a part of the body of Christ, receiving Christ, is, I think, very freeing, very liberating. To allow, to become the kind of servant that Christ is. We want, as much as we appreciate the sacrifice that we're offering, we also want to be that sacrifice. But we're not up to that task. But that's okay, because we can receive the Eucharist, become a part of Christ's body, and participate. So I find it all very liberating as much as it is uniting, I guess we could say.
Yeah, I see that. The next thing we will do actually for the dish, you notice we chopped some green onions. Those are going to be for our garnish on top. But the next thing that we did was we're actually going to combine some apple cider vinegar along with some just plain white sugar. The thing that oftentimes you have is a balance in the German potato salad, which is a little bit tricky, is you have a balance between kind of the bite of the vinegar as well as a little bit of the sweetness of the sugar, and it's meant to kind of balance it out. You'll have sometimes some German potato salads where it's a little sweeter, which you definitely can do, and then some which have a little bit more of a vinegar bite. I always kind of prefer a little bit more of a vinegar bite. So we've got about a cup of apple cider vinegar, and then we got almost a cup of sugar. And we may add a little extra vinegar. We'll see how it smells here in a second. But for this batch which we're making, which is going to be a pretty good amount, we're going to be using about a cup, maybe a cup and a quarter of apple cider vinegar. So with that, let's see, the onions are looking pretty good. Now Peter, you have 2 girls?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, now they've not both made the communion, have they?
No, we have, the oldest one has, the second one will be coming out this year, as a matter of fact. So
great.
she's very excited. Having witnessed what happened with her sister and all of the things that came both that afternoon and then in the weeks following, she's excited.
I bet.
We're excited for her.
I bet. Making your first communion is one of those real exciting times. I remember my sister's 4 years older than I am.
Right.
I can remember watching her receive communion, and I so wanted to as well.
Right.
But
I understand the feeling.
now, one of the things is we're about to put the vinegar and stuff in here. One of the things which one of my friends asked to make sure that I mention is that German potato salad goes really great with bratwurst German sausage.
Ooh.
Now, we're not making German sausage today, but if you want a good recipe to actually do that, which I found works really well, is you take your bratwurst or your German sausage and you put it in a pot, you cover it with beer, you put a little bit of some pickling spices in there with a quartered onion, you bring it to a boil. After you've boiled it and you've basically cooked your sausage, you take it off of the heat and you put it in your refrigerator and kind of cool it down, refrigerate it for a time, and then whenever you're ready the next day, you can grill it. And you grill that, you serve it with your German potato salad, a little bit of sauerkraut.
Yes. I'm glad we're recording this. Put it that way. Brilliant. That sounds delicious.
All right, these onions are looking good. Okay, so the next thing we will do is we add in the apple cider vinegar. And we'll add in the sugar. Okay, let me do, that's a little bit more. All right. And we'll stir this around and we'll need to bring it back to a boil. And that shouldn't take too long. It's a really hot mixture right now. Always be careful when you're working with this stuff. It will burn you in no time flat if you're not careful. Now if you end up smelling it, you should get a big whiff of vinegar.
Oh yeah.
And I may add in just a little touch more.
Wasn't quite a big enough whiff.
No. There we go. So you're doing about a cup to a cup and a quarter worth of vinegar in here. You take the pot. What I did with the pot was I combined the potatoes back into the pot itself. Okay. So we'll stick this back here on the stove. And what I'm going to have Peter do carefully is I'm going to have him pour the mixture in there. We're going to stir it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take about 3/4 of the bacon that we have here and combine it in there as well. And which actually we can go ahead and put it in right now. And then we're going to leave the rest of it to kind of garnish on the top. Let's see. There we go. use a spatula to mix it around. Go ahead. Looking good. Looking good. All right.
Get all the grease in
Perfect. There we go. All right. All of that together. There we go. Now what you're looking for is to have a little bit of that kind of consistency like that. You'll notice that the potatoes were pretty well cooked. And with the onions and the bacon grease and everything like that in there, you get kind of a nice little bit of a creamy texture. You got the bacon in there. Now what we would do next is we would take it, and before serving, which you could put it actually in another container if you wanted to serve it, or you could keep it right in there. And if you keep it right in there, we will add the green onions and a little bit of the bacon on top. Which we'll do that right now. Some of the green onions there. And a little bit of the bacon. There we go. That was a light all of it.
Just, yeah. Live boldly.
There we go. Now, Peter, if anybody else was to ask you about, why it is that you receive the Eucharist and why it's something that's important to you, anything else you'd tell them?
Well, it's a part of my own personal yes to God's call, right? So in the course of the life of discipleship, you have to continuously say yes, because in so many other parts of our lives we're saying no. And so the continuous acceptance of God's forgiveness, God's challenge, is what motivates me, I think, to desire to continually receive that gift.
Understand. For me, it's always been also something which, definitely, I guess, one of the effects of the Eucharist we could look at is how it helps us with sin.
Absolutely.
One of these things to which, receiving the Eucharist, it's one of these things to where I feel less likely to want to give in to certain sins or temptations, because the idea of being united to Christ through the Eucharist. But also that thing of it's whether we say it's just God's grace that we receive through the Eucharist or whatever. I'm much less likely to say I can do this or go that direction, which I know I really shouldn't.
Right. I mean, it definitely increases the level of mindfulness, generally speaking. Like throughout the entire course of the week, and especially if you have the opportunity to get to a daily mass and partake more often, I think that makes all the more difference. But it is, as much as I think about the challenge that sharing and becoming a part of the body of Christ is, this challenge to be more holy, to sin less, that kind of thing. The idea that what Christ has done for us is free us from the law as that which saves us, right? The freedom of the Christian, as they say. We're free to focus less on the sin and more on the person, to love radically, regardless of what we think the rules might be in that situation, to just be present to the people around us. And I think about that challenge, especially with the gift of peace in the midst of that service. The whole thing sort of just brings me into a new form of relationship with the people that are around me. Not just my family, but the people in the pews, the people in our community that we all, as we walk up and share together, the whole communal aspect of it just keeps coming to mind.
Very cool. Well, again, thank you for watching the episode. I hope that y'all enjoyed the German potato salad recipe. Again, the recipe will be posted online, and the coming potluck that we will have on Sunday, you're welcome to make some German potato salad and bring it, or if there's something else you'd like to bring, you're welcome to do that. But we will explore in a little more depth about not only about the Eucharist, but especially about the Eucharist and how it affects us and why it's important to us. So, again, Prost.
Prost.